Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me. I'm joined by a phenomenal guy. He's not only an author, but he's a dad, and I'm excited to dive into the stuff that he's doing to help you as parents and help your kids. And we'll get into all that. But my good friend Josh Brisbane has joined me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate having me on. It's an honor, so I appreciate it. It's early in the morning over here on the West Coast, and we're starting bright and early, so I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's dive right in. For my listeners who may not know who you are, let's dive into your backstory, kind of a little bit of history about you, how you grew up, all that kind of stuff, and then how you got into the things that you're doing now, your book, all that, and then obviously this is a dad podcast, so more importantly about your kids as well. So hit
Yeah.
it.
Well, like we just discovered, we grew up pretty close to each other. I grew up in Laverne, nice suburban little area outside of LA, and I never learned how to defend myself or fight or anything. I went to college, picked up fighting, kind of you know, joined a fight club. Actually, it wasn't. I'm not didn't go through the ranks or do all that fun stuff, but I learned to, at the time, I learned to fight just because I wanted to be a tough guy. I wanted, all the vanity reasons why young men want to learn how to fight, right? And now, as a father, as a family man, I'm glad I did all that. And I went in the cages and I learned how to fight. But now my main goal is to protect my family, protect my son, protect my wife at all costs. And so I've taken all the things that I've learned. I've been in mixed martial arts for about 20 years off and on. I've done Krav Maga, Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, Muay Thai, and I rolled it all up. And now I wrote the book, Hard to Kill. It's basically I want to inspire the average person, right? Because I'm not a UFC champion. I didn't go to Thailand and become a Muay Thai kickboxer. I'm just an average guy who took it upon myself to learn all these disciplines and roll them up and just say, hey, this is what I can provide for you guys. So the book is Hard to Kill. It's the life lessons that I've learned that I think are valuable to people, fathers, husbands, protectors, that they can utilize and say, hey, you know what? If this average guy can do it, why can't I? And I think in this day and age, especially out here in California, where you can turn on the news right now and you can see people being attacked in broad daylight. No more are the days where, 2 o'clock in the morning, you might hear somebody sneaking in your house. They're doing it in broad daylight. And we need to step up and start protecting ourselves. And it starts the moment you walk out of that door. So that's the message I get out to people. It doesn't matter if you're a woman. I teach kids, I teach women, I teach anybody who wants to come to the classes and courses and get involved. It doesn't matter. I want everybody to stand up for themselves. And, that doesn't mean walk out, open up your chest and have a big S on it and say, here I am, let's go, and try to be a badass. I just don't want people to walk in fear and not know the basic situational awareness tactics that I teach. And when we go over, there's things that you can do to avoid danger, avoid, being a victim. But that's me in a nutshell. Is I am the average guy just trying to inspire the average person to become hard to kill, because I'm tired of the way the crazy world is going. And if I have a certain, like Liam Neeson says, if I have a particular set of skills that can help you become hard to kill, then that's my message. That's what I want to share. And that's what I'm doing right now with Savage Syndicate.
Oh, that's awesome. Now, how many kids you got? What's their ages?
I just have the 1 9-year-old, and he keeps me really active. I'm very fortunate that he is involved in my passion, surfing, number one, and protecting and fighting. So he does jiu-jitsu. So we know we grew up doing. I was a soccer coach, and I was all the typical things. And then he saw me surfing, and then he saw me coming home from jiu-jitsu and fighting. And he just, I never wanted to be that dad where you have to do this or you have. I let him do whatever he wants to do and whatever he wants to gravitate towards. If it's baseball, I don't know anything about baseball, but I'll surround him with people who know how to do it, right? With the proper coaches and stuff. So I'm very fortunate. He's picked up jiu-jitsu and surfing. So he wants to do flag football, but he only wants to show up to the games. He doesn't want to practice because I said, they're going to have practices. Though. You're going to have to choose between jiu-jitsu and your surfing and flag football. He says, well, I just want to show up for the games. I'm like, yeah, son, that's not really how it works. You got to put the time and you got to learn to play. So right now he's very active in jiu-jitsu. He has a tournament we both do next week. On the 17th. And he just had a surfing contest last weekend. So he's very active. He's very physical young man. He's 9 years old. He goes to a homeschool campus out here in San Clemente. So because the systems out here are so crazy that we wanted to hand pick what he's being taught. So he goes to it's a campus, but we hire the teachers individually. They're like vendors, and so he's at that campus right now. So yeah, just one right now, 9 years old, and that's another reason why I stay fit and do all the things that I do because I got to keep up with him. Dad, let's go throw the football. Okay, Dad, let's go do this. Dad, this new thing you wanted to go ice skating the other day. I should have said no because my feet, my ankles were so beat up. I'm like, man, this is a whole nother world I got to get into now.
That's cool. I mean, you're being active with him and being attentive to the things that interest him. And that's one of the keys in parenting is just, some parents say that, they have a hard time connecting with their child. And I tell them, find things that they're interested in and get interested in them, even if it's video games,
Yeah.
especially through the pandemic. I had a lot of parents reaching out to me saying, hey, I can't get my kids off the video games. And I said, well, they're kind of stuck in the house. They can't go out anywhere because of the pandemic. So why not get into the video games with them? What's the harm in that? As long as they're getting everything else done, their chores and homework and all that. Have fun with the video games. Have them teach you. Act like you're interested, so that way it kind of helps build that bond and that relationship, and keeps you guys both connected. So that's cool that you're doing that stuff. Let me ask you this though. You said that you weren't really into protecting yourself as a young man. Were you bullied, or did you have those experiences as a kid?
I wasn't bullied in the sense of like getting picked on and hit every single day. There was scenarios, and I have one in the book here, and I remember it vividly. Just on the playground in grade school, and I got shoved and I got hit, and I was like, I didn't defend myself, and it drove me nuts. It drives me nuts to this day that like the fear took over, right? I didn't defend myself, and that's why I'm so eager to teach people now that get past that fear. There's ways to do it, and there's ways that I don't ever want to feel like that victim scenario again. So it did motivate me, but I didn't realize it motivated me years later, right? It wasn't like that happened on a Tuesday and on Wednesday I was at a studio trying to learn how to fight. It was emotional, it was like all kids, they get picked on or whatever, it hurt and all those emotions that go with it. But it didn't really surface until I started writing this book. And I'm like, there was that one incident and that like really pissed me off. It really hurt, but all these things because and I also mentioned that my dad never, great dad, great childhood. I'm never knocked that at all, but he never taught me how to fight. He never taught me how to properly throw a punch. And so that's why, we always kind of want to do a little bit better than what we were raised. That's why at 9 years old, I'm very active in teaching my son because yeah, it's great to defend yourself, but we run scenarios like if somebody grabs your arm, like for a kidnapping scenario, or if somebody, we have safe words. And I just want to instill in him the power that I didn't have when I was a kid. So not that my dad failed in any aspect at all, but he didn't talk to me about this kind of stuff. He grew up in a really Baldwin Park. He went to military school. He had all these. He had to defend himself a lot and fight for his life. So maybe that's why he didn't, because he was trying to better me, like I'm trying to better my son. But in no aspects did he teach me, put your hands up. This is how you block. This is how you hit. So then after that, after that incident, I didn't go into fighting. But until I was about 2021, that's when I started going, wow, UFC, we all grew up watching it, Mike Tyson fighting, and I had interest in it, but I never put on gloves or put in a mouthpiece and went at it until I was about 21, 22 years old.
Mm.
So
Isn't it amazing the things that we go through as a child that had such an impact on us, good or bad, that we still can reflect on as an adult and think back to? Because I can think back to times that I wasn't bullied either, but there were times that I was picked on and had to defend myself. And I can remember a handful of times that, and I can pick them out and reflect back on that memory in what took place. And it's crazy how long ago that was, and it's still in my memory bank.
yeah,
But my dad was on the he was the flip side of things. He did teach me how to defend myself. He didn't encourage fighting and didn't like the fighting part of it, but at the same time, he said, if you're ever up against a wall where you have to defend yourself, this is what you do. This is what you do. This is what you do. So he
yeah,
did teach me how to defend myself, and I had to use those skills from time to time growing up. And so it was always a part of my life. And then, when I got out of high school, I went into the Marine Corps, And obviously, the Marine Corps, they teach you how to fight and teach you how to kill, and they teach you how to cuss and drink too. But so I picked those skills up in the Marines, and I wanted to make sure that my kids knew the basics. I wasn't necessarily going to encourage them to take karate or any of those types of things. If they were interested in that, great. But that was never a part of my life. And I just let them, like you did, I just kind of let them pick what they were interested in, and they just kind of gravitated towards sports. But
Yeah.
I did teach my kids, hey, this is how you defend yourself. This is what you need to do here. This is what you need to do in this scenario. And my boys have both had experiences in school or out and about where they've had to defend themselves.
Yeah.
It's very important, and especially today with especially like crime rate and all that kind of stuff going as on the rise, we have to be more aware of those types of things and also be aware of our surroundings. One of the things that I think about with the military that they taught me is be aware of your surroundings. Because when you're in war, when you're in combat, your head has to be on a swivel. You have to be aware of your surroundings. And I know that when I go into a place, if it's a strange environment, particularly a strange environment, I will always measure out the room. I will always scan the room. It's just a natural thing that I do. It's just naturally to me. I just naturally gravitate or do it. But I'll scan the room. I look at the people. I look at the exits. And then typically my back, if I'm sitting down somewhere or standing up in a room, my back will not be at an exit. My back will be facing an exit. So, I mean, I will be facing an exit. So that way I know I can see who's coming in and out, or I can see the exit to get to it if I need to. Uh, that's just something I think I learned in the military, but it's something that I taught my boys as well. Even in coaching, I coach sports throughout their lives, all the way up through high school. And I'd be in the gym, and it's a gym that I'm familiar with, but my back is against the wall. I'm facing the exits so I can see who's coming in and out of the gym at practices
Yeah.
or games. It's just something that I naturally do. Um, my boys are 24 and 21. And if they wanted to take on, karate or, get into, I don't know, the gym and work out in a boxing ring or a cage, it's not something I would be against. I do know that there are a lot of parents that are against their kids fighting and
Mm.
don't really see the benefit of, I guess, defending themselves, more like the mentality of run before you have to defend yourself. Why do you think that is? Why do you think parents are so scared to teach their kids self-defense tactics?
I think it's because of kind of the society we live in where they think, I've had this my whole life. Everybody I've met who I say, yeah, it's hard to say that you were a cage fighter or that you were an amateur MMA fighter because they all have the stigma of two men enter, one man leaves, right? They all have that brutal, no teeth, like just barbarian stigma that goes with fighting. So I think a lot of parents, if they're not involved in any kind of martial arts or sports like that, then they have that stigma their whole life. That's the way they are. And so obviously the kids, they're thinking, okay, they don't want their kid to be a no teeth, cauliflower eared kid. That's your future. We want you to be studious, and that's all great too. But I think that's where the breakdown is the parents don't understand it. They don't understand the necessity of it. And like I said earlier, I'm not having my kid go out there and walk around with an arrogance because he knows how to fight. We are very strict on no bullying. If he ever is ever an issue, we pull the plug on jiu-jitsu, we pull the plug on surfing, and we highly stress that what is very important to know, but it's also dangerous if you use it. We joke around and say, if you use it for evil, right? Well, you got to use it for good. So I think a lot of parents don't want their kid, and they need to understand that they're doing their kid a disservice. I mentioned in my book that it's our jobs as parents, right? If you send your kid to the beach, you wouldn't, or I use a reference of like, hey, you wouldn't send your kid to a pool party and just drop them off without having your kid know how to swim, right? You're doing your kid a disservice. Your kid's not going to have fun. You're making those pain. If you don't stay, there's people that drop their kids off at parties. I'm the one who stays there and watches, but if your kid's around a pool, teach them how to swim, right? You're not going to just have a kid in a bubble. If you teach your kid how to defend themselves, you're giving them all the tools to be successful in life. You teach them how to read, you teach them how to do math, you teach them history. to me, learning how to defend yourself is just as important as those other things, because there's going to be bullies, there's going to be assholes, there's going to be people out there that are going to see how you hold yourself. You know, the shy, quiet kid. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm a pretty shy guy normally, but predators look at that stuff and they're going to go up and they're going to pick on those kids. And if those kids don't defend themselves, it could just take 1-2 punch. And that guy's going to be like, okay, this kid knows a little something. It's a little harder to take what I want out of him, make him a victim. I'm going to go to the next guy. So you made little Johnny no longer a victim. That gets little Johnny's, his confidence. You build his confidence. I only think teaching your kids how to fight, and not in the sense of like put 2 kids in a cage and let them go at it. My son doesn't go in a cage. My son doesn't go into boxing anymore because they were doing some sparring stuff. I mean, he doesn't need unnecessary hits to the head. So we're very cautious of the training that he does get, but it's crucial in teaching him now. So when he's 15, 16, 17, and maybe he doesn't want to do it, right? Maybe, and then it's totally his choice. I'm not going to pressure him to getting the next belt or the next competition, but at least he has a foundation. He has a base that he can rely on, that when, Joe Blow tries to pick on him, he knows enough to where he's not going to be picked on. He's not going to be the victim. So I think parents need to understand that we teach our kids how to drive. We teach our kids all these tools, right? With the hopes that they're going to be an upstanding individual once they leave the house. Well, I think in that core group of things that we need to teach them is how to defend themselves. So I talk to parents all the time about, what training does for kids. It's confidence booster. They walk around with a little bit more, watch a nature show. Lions go after the weak ones, right? It's not the big bad bulls that they're going after. They're going after the weak ones. Same thing with human nature. The kids are looking after kids who are head down, not paying attention, or easy targets. If you teach your kid not to be an easy target, only great things could happen from that. So I would encourage the parents to overcome that stigma. And how do you do that? Educate yourself. Look into a martial arts school. Don't watch a UFC event where it might be bloody and guys are breaking arms and stuff, but do it the right way. Go to a martial arts class. Those parents who don't think it's important for their kids usually think that a martial arts studio is going to be full of those people that I just mentioned, the no teeth, the disrespectful. But if you go into a martial arts studio, it is the most courteous, well-respected, upkept. I mean, there's protocol. You can't go in there and just walk on the mat, spit, it is like a church in there, honestly. It's such a great community. And once they come into that, they'll see that it's not just 2 barbarians or, any thugs going at it. It's an educational experience with honor and respect and loyalty. And every kid I know that comes through a course with us or does mixed martial arts, they're only better for it. You see the change in these kids. So I would highly recommend parents get past that stigma and go a step further and get their kids in some kind of martial arts program.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been in martial arts myself. I've gone and participated in a studio, and as an adult, I did this as an adult, and I'll say that you walk in there, and it's almost like a different atmosphere the second you walk in the door, because you can feel the level of respect that not only the students have for the studio, but also the students have for the instructors. And you have to show that respect, and they demand it. And then they teach you not only the self defense side of things, but they also teach you self discipline and how to be a disciplined person and more mature. And I saw that as an adult, I was attending these classes, and I saw these younger kids showing this level of respect to not only the instructors, but others in the class, either other students or parents. And you're right; it's absolutely a completely different environment, so I can attest to what you're saying. It is absolutely the truth. You might get a knucklehead here and there, but it doesn't last in a studio. If you have those knuckleheads in the studio, the instructors are very adamant in keeping the respect level high and treating others with respect. So absolutely 100% agree with that for sure. Let's talk a little bit about your book and what was the purpose behind Hard to Kill.
So the book Hard to Kill, it is just most people think, okay, hard to kill. You got to put 10 years to get your black belt. You got to go become a special ops or an ex-Navy SEAL. You got to come this high echelon of badass, being a badass to be hard to kill. But my point is, I'm not ex-military. I'm not law enforcement. I am just a person, an average guy, a father, a husband, an entrepreneur who has taken it upon myself that I, as the average person, can do it. I want to inspire you to do it. And that's the whole thing. I'm not going online and Mr. Miyagi, like, do 100 jabs, bah, 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 right? I do have training courses and stuff that you can do. But my main goal is if Bob Smith in Idaho reads this, I want Bob Smith to be like, man, hard to kill. Why can't I do it? And I'll tell you an interesting story. I just got it this morning on social media. A guy wrote out to me, and I've gone back and forth with him about a few other business things. And he says, hey, man, I was thinking about you yesterday. He goes, I had a road rage incident, and the guy was chasing me, and he was trying to run me off the road. I was trying to evade him. And I was thinking, shit, what's going to happen if this guy comes at me? He goes, I had my firearm with me, but he goes, I can't use, what if I didn't have my firearm? What do I do? Man, what would Josh do right now? And I was like, oh man, I got to make that a podcast. I got to do something with that story. But it's just making people, and I've gotten a few things like that, not to that extent, but I've gotten people say, hey, you know what? You kind of lit a fire under my butt that I got to get out there. I have four principles of being hard to kill. And one of them is fitness and strength and conditioning, right? And like you said, we talked about earlier, situational, the four principles are situational awareness, strength and conditioning, intense training, and consistency. So it's once you learn the situational awareness tactics, it becomes second nature to you. So that's a way to become hard to kill. As soon as you walk out of that house, there's little tactics. You become like a street light. There's yellow, red, and green. You become yellow. But the goal of that book was to just tell people that you, as an average person, a family man, a good citizen, right? Because I'm not a thug. I'm not out there committing crimes, but I'm hard to kill. If you come at me, I have a certain set of skills that'll make your life hard. You come after my family, it's go time, right? And so I've done that by putting it in the blood, sweat, and tears. And so the book was inspired because I want to inspire other people to do that. The victim mentality needs to stop, especially with this day and age, especially out here in California. As you know, bad shit is happening to good people every single day. And so it's time for the good people to put a little extra effort in, right? We put a little extra money into investments, crypto, this, that, and that. Why wouldn't you invest in your own protection, your family's protection? That number one reason right there is my family. That's my son and my wife. That's the number one reason why I keep grinding it. I was at the gym this morning. I'll have jiu-jitsu tonight. I hit the bag. I do Muay Thai. I do tactical courses. All of that is to keep them safe right there. So my goal with that book is to inspire everybody. You can come to me for training, and that's great. And I have other places you can go. But the goal is, like I said, of Idaho, Wisconsin, New York, wherever you're at, say, man, I read that book, Hard to Kill. I'm going to look up a gym in my area. I'm going to look at a place where I can go learn the basics, right? The fundamentals of how to be hard to kill. And that's why I wrote the book. And that's what I want people to get out of it.
Oh, that's excellent. It's interesting you brought up a story of road rage because we think about our kids when they hit those teenage years and they're getting their licenses. And one of the things that you talk about with your kids is make sure you're driving safely. And obviously, if you get pulled over, give the officer respect, all those things. But I don't know that there's many discussions with road rage.
Yeah.
And there have been times in my life, I have had tempers in the past that have escalated to almost road rage situations. I had an incident when my boys, just a real quick story, I had an incident with my boys. They were much younger. My younger son, who's now 21, I think he was about 4 at the time, but I had both my boys in the car. And a guy was right on we're going through my neighborhood, and a guy was right on my bumper. I mean, just like he was in a hurry. And so I pulled up to the light, and instead of him waiting for me to turn right, he decided to fly around me and turn right and nearly cut me off. I mean, just I almost went into him because I didn't expect him to just fly around me and cut me off. So I got pissed and started honking my horn and waving at him. And I pulled up next to him and he's, doing all kinds of stuff with his hands and telling me to pull over. And okay. So I pulled over and he pulled over. I got out of the car because I was going to destroy this dude. I got out of the car. He gets out of the car. But as I'm getting out, I tell my boys, stay right here. And my younger son started crying and screaming, no, dad, don't. And that just hit me. I mean, it
Yeah.
was like that instant. I was like, what in the world am I doing right now? Right. So this guy's out of his car. And I finally, like, that just hit me and said, you need to stop what you're doing because this is not going to go well. And
Yeah.
I got back in my car and he was standing out of his car and I just pulled away. And I said, you know what, guys, I'm sorry. I should not have done that. Had my boys not been there, it might have been a different picture. But I said I should not have done that. That was wrong of me. And now this guy's flying up on me, and he's still waving at me, and I just ignored him, and he ended up flying, just carrying on. But that was one incident that I think back to, and it took my kids to stop me and realize, you know what? You're a dad. You're a young dad. You got two young kids in the car that you just put their lives in danger. And road rage now is much scarier. That was, almost, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Road rage now is much dangerous where, people are not afraid to pull guns and pull weapons. And I tell my kids all the time, do not confront somebody that's driving erratic or doing something stupid. Just get out of their way and let them go by. Don't make eye contact, those kind of things. For a parent that maybe has a teenage son or daughter that's just starting to learn how to drive, what advice would you give to those parents about, road rage incidents where, maybe they do have to defend themselves? What would you recommend?
Not what you did. Don't get
Right.
out of your car. Yeah, like what you said, kids learn more by what we do, right? Not by what we say. So I've had the same scenario happen to me, a road rage incident, and I laughed and I was like, this guy is like going crazy. And the more I laughed, the more irate he got, and he was flipping out. And he was on the side of my son's car because we were in a traffic jam, and he was like doing all that. And so no harm, no foul. He was trying to get out, and I just drove off. But my son said, "What were you going to do if he had a weapon?" Because that's how we think. It was like that's why you don't want to engage these guys because, like you said, there's different levels of crazy. We're upstanding citizens, but that gentleman could have just got out of jail, and he has no problem going back. Right? His level of ethical reasoning, you don't know it.
Right.
So what might piss me off is one thing. What might piss him off is another, and how we react is totally different. So never engage is what I would tell my kid. Oh, and then what my son said, what would you have done if you got out of the car? I said I would have used the best weapon I had. He's like, "What's that?" I said, "My big ass truck." I would have pinned him in his car, right? Because that's if he's coming after me on my son's side of the car. Hey, my car is just it's replaceable. I love my car, my truck, but it's not. It's a tool. It's a weapon, right? If I got to use it, I got to use it because I'm not going to reach over and use a lot of different scenarios. But I told him I'd pin him in, and he's like, "Okay." And I talked about the scenario. I said, what did you see that I did that you would how would you have handled that situation? He said, well, you did it right. I mean, you didn't get angry. You just kind of laughed it off, but it really pissed that guy off that you were laughing. I said, yeah, but I can't control that guy, right? Control the controllables. I can only control what I can control. He was having a bad day because it was a very small infraction. I don't even actually know what it was. There was a light or a red stop or stop sign when we were by a school, so everybody was jammed up, and I just snuck out, and that flipped them out. But whatever. But what I would tell people with their teenage kids is do not engage. This is a crazy world we live in where criminals are getting away with more and more stuff. So if they ram you with the car and you get upset, you get out of the car, this gentleman has a knife, or a one punch hit. How many times have we seen one hit, you fall back, hit your head, and you get injured, or you do the punch, he hits his head, he dies, you get in your car, drive off. Who's going to be the one in trouble? You, over a road rage incident, over a small infraction, or at the time you thought was end all be all. I'm upset, code red, I'm going. And now it's a life altering event, not for you, just for you, but you, your family, your kids, your wife, his family, all the ripple effect, all because of maybe a cutoff or whatever the case may be. So when you have these kids and we can't be with them, right? Don't engage. Obviously, drive within the rules. I drive fast. I like to go quickly, but I'm doing it safely, I'd like to think. But drive safely, drive under the rules, and don't engage. Don't. I had a homeless guy in Dana Point. I was coming up from jiu-jitsu, and he had the crazy eye. He was a homeless dude, and he walked right in front of my car while I was driving. There was no stunt, and he was looking for a fight. And I just sat there and I looked at him and I smiled. I said, "Keep going, my man," because the same scenario. I would have nudged him with my car before I got out and confronted him. One, I don't know if he has a weapon. He's obviously not all there. He's a little schizoid. But I get out and destroy him. Now I'm in trouble. Cop's going to say, "What were you doing? Why did you engage in that?" And I'm like, "Well, he was walking in front of my car." At the end of the day, is that harming me? Is that putting anything in danger? No. So if you look, and I know it's easier said than done. I've been in instances where I've done stupid things in the past, but I'd like to say I learned from them. So that's why I'm saying, if you have a kid and you're teaching their kids how to do the right thing, do not engage. But also with that, do have them know how to protect themselves, because if Johnny Badass wants to come up and they're at a stop sign and your kid's abiding by the law, they're going to have to stop at a light, right? And Johnny Badass gets out, don't engage. Call 911. If the guy starts pounding, then take off, break a law. But if he is chasing you, like your scenario, pull up to a gas station or a police station. If you can't find a police station because you're going to be panicked, your adrenaline's going to be flowing, go to a place that has a lot of people. It could be a gas station or a grocery store, or go somewhere that's well lit. If it's at night, a well lit area. Don't go into a parking lot and play his game and think, "Oh, we're just going to talk about this instance and I'm going to calm him down." You don't know this other person's crazy, so you do not need to engage in this. If you are driving off and a police officer stops you, tell them what you're doing. Police officers are human. They understand. They have kids. They're going to understand that, okay, you were out running this guy for whatever reason, but at least you have the cops involved now. But there's just, don't engage with these people, because if they're going to let it, especially if they see a young kid now driving and they're still that heated. Sometimes if somebody's doing a knucklehead thing and I pull up, I'm like, kid's 18 years old. He just started driving, whatever, you just got to take everything with a grain of salt. And so don't have your kids engage in any of this nonsense that's out there happening right now.
Yeah. I tell my boys that all the time because they've had instances in the past where things have happened while they're driving, and I've told them constantly, just don't engage, just back off, let them be crazy, because you're right, you don't know what they're going through. They could have had something traumatic happen that day that has just thrown them off the rails, and you have no idea what they're going through. I just literally had an incident last night. I'm driving home. I had a green light. I see a car at the side road turning right to go on the street that I was on, but there was two lanes. And as I'm going through the light, I see this guy start to turn, and I assume he's going to turn in the lane next to me. But no, he comes over into my lane. Now I'm already in that lane and he's coming over. I had to, Josh, this is no joke, I had to swerve. I didn't even have time to hit the horn. I had to swerve into oncoming traffic in the other lane. Luckily, there were no cars there, but I had to swerve into the other side of the road in order to avoid him. This was just last night. And immediately I was pissed because I almost T-boned the guy. And
Yeah.
I just continued driving. I had to just focus on my driving, and I didn't even look at the guy, because who knows what that person was doing? Who knows what they were going through? They may have a kid that they were trying to control while they were trying to drive. I have no idea, but I didn't even acknowledge the person after I drove by him. But you just never know the situation that you're in or the other person is in. And you're right, engaging is not the answer. I think when I also think about safety and protecting ourselves, I think about our homes. And I think about the things that we have to do in order to protect ourselves in our homes. This is our safe space, right? We teach our kids that your home is your safe space. And we just had an incident last weekend where my neighbor across the street had an attempted break-in. And I was talking to them about it. And she was asking me about our house and the kind of security system we have. And we had an incident about 8 months ago where my next door neighbor had a guy that came up on their driveway trying to open up their car doors in the middle of the night. And he has security cameras and he caught it on video and he sent it to me and said, "Hey, just want to let you know." Well, when he sent that to me, I told my wife, I said, "That's it. We're getting security cameras and we're doing the whole deal." So we did. We got security cameras all put in, alarm system all upgraded, everything done. And I was telling my neighbor across the street, invest in the security cameras, invest in an alarm. It's a little bit of money every month. It's not a big deal. But one of the things that I did encourage her to do is to get a gun. We have a gun in the house. It's something that we keep just for protection. But my wife doesn't like to have a gun, but it's for that need of protection in case it's needed. Is that something that you would encourage parents to do to protect their families? Get a gun? Maybe there's many people out there that don't believe in carrying a weapon or having a weapon in the house, like a gun. What's your thoughts on that?
I 100% agree. My theory is I always have scenarios in my head, and they're very drastic scenarios. There's some more mellow, but every scenario ends up with me being harmed. So why wouldn't I want to give every advantage to myself? So with fighting, with weapons, knives, guns, anything can be a weapon too. But yes, I do think every home should have a gun. With that said, I also think everybody who owns a gun should go to the range, hire a professional, and have them teach them properly with the guns that they have. Because most people get a gun and put it away and say, "Hey, I have a gun now." Well, that's a false sense of security, because have you woken up at 2 a.m. and done the drills of getting that gun, making sure it's cocked and locked and ready to rock, and cleared your house? Do you know where your kids' rooms are? Because if a predator's here and you shoot, you miss Johnny Badass and you shoot your kid's room. Have you done those drills? And that's what I tell people is once you get the gun, that's only half the battle, right? Now you have to do all the training that goes with that gun. And you have to do the drills. You have to do the dry runs. You have to do the dry firing. There's so many different techniques that you can do. Just like with anything that we want to do, like if you want to get your license, right, you have to study for it. You have to drive for 6 months with your parent. You have to do all these other things. And you have to get tested. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but it's pretty easy to get a gun. But unfortunately, most people think that once they get that gun, they put it somewhere, hopefully in a safe, in a lockbox or whatever, and it's protected from the other, kids or whatever. But they think, "Oh, I got that gun, I'm fine," right? And unfortunately, you're not, because the crime or the perpetrator is going to come in. Maybe they are well versed with their guns, but you don't know if there's one or two or three. So what I do with my guns is I practice going through the house, clean. I actually had to do it the other night. My wife says, "Josh, there was a loud noise." Okay, babe. Well, I didn't hear it. The dogs didn't hear it. How loud a noise was this? Is it me with my gun, me with my knife, me, or just going? She goes, "Get down there." I'm like, "All right, here I go." So I cleared the house. And, it just turned out that the wind was blowing last week, right? And it was palm frond fellow, whatever. But I knew what to do because I've done that so many times, not just in my head, but I've also done drills with, waking up in the early morning. I've done it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon where, I'm awake already and I've cleared the house. I've waken up out of a dead sleep. I'll set my alarm. I got to go. And that's what you got to train yourself for. You can't think that you're prepared just when okay, you always got to be prepared for an attack, not at just right times. You wake up, okay, 3 o'clock, I'm going to simulate. Oh, I felt good. I had my coffee. I had my tea or whatever. I'm pretty good. Let's go. No, attacks happen when you're least expecting, when you're not ready. Most fights obviously stand toe to toe, right? But practice getting attacked from the behind, from the side, while you're sleeping, home invasion drills. These are all things that I've done and I do on a normal, regular basis, because once you have that gun, you need to learn how to use that gun, and you need to learn how to use that gun under distress, right? Because the guy could be already on top of you, could be hurting your wife, could be in your kid's room. And now you got to take this gun and go, you're going to make life and death decisions like that. And so get that gun, have a professional come and teach you how to clear your house, and then practice on your own. The gun is a great tool to have, and I'm 100% supporter of having your own guns. I have many here, and I have them not just in my home or in my bedroom, but I have them downstairs, because I'm at home doing whatever, and somebody comes through that front door. I can't say, "Wait, time out. Let me run upstairs and go grab my gun real quick, and then let me come back down." No, shit happens and it happens quick. So I have things stashed everywhere that if you're coming, because at night, most people count sheep to go to sleep. I run scenarios through my head of being attacked. How am I going to protect my family? How am I going to protect my kid? We have safe words. And it's not being paranoid, which is a lot of people I get like, you must live in a paranoid world. Not at all. I don't army crawl from here to the bathroom. I live a pretty normal life, but I'm aware. I'm situationally aware of what's going on around me. And I practice what I tell everybody else to do. So yes, get a gun, but professionally be trained on how to use that gun.
Yeah, I think that's key is learning how to use that gun, and I think not only that, but also going to the range, every so often and practicing using that gun. On top of that, learning how to clean the gun. I mean, those things
Yep.
are important as well. So learning the functions of the gun and learning the different components of it and how to clean it is super important. But yeah, I mean, we got the gun and we learned how to use it and we go to the range, we do those kinds of things as a family. We do that. My wife has not used a gun. She is afraid to use it, and that's okay, but if a situation comes up and she's home alone, she needs to know what to do, and she does. But super important, and I think today, especially like you said earlier, criminals are doing this stuff in broad daylight, and you have to be aware of that. And I think having a security system in place, having cameras, spending a little bit of money every month to have cameras in place. I mean, we've caught. I mean, I just caught doorbell dingers. Guys ringing the doorbell and kids ringing the doorbell and running off. I got a
Yeah.
notification on my phone. It was last week. Got a notification on my phone that somebody was on our driveway, and then all of a sudden this bang 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 on the door, and I'm like, that's weird. So I look at the camera and I didn't answer the door. I just looked at the camera and saw that there was these two kids that walked up on my porch and rang the doorbell. And then I saw them run off my lawn and run down the street.
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. That's
Yeah.
kind of stupid that kids are still doing that these days. But
Yeah.
anyways, um, let me ask you one last question, then I'll let you go. If
Yeah.
parents, are interested in having their kids learn self-defense tactics, or at least something to kind of protect themselves, what would you say? And I know you can't demonstrate or anything like that, but what would you say would be, the starting point of getting that done?
Well, as a protector, I think it's crucial to have striking, groundwork, and then weapon control, right? It's This is why UFC started, because everybody says jiu-jitsu is better than Muay Thai, boxing. Everybody competes in this and that. I think for kids at a young age, Krav Maga is really good. I know it gets a lot of negative, but talk to me about it, because there's Krav Maga studios who teach one way, and then there's other Krav Maga studios that will never let you hand-to-hand combat because they think it's too deadly. I was very fortunate to get with a good group of guys that do Krav the right way. So you can do Krav. Jiu-Jitsu, I think, is great for young kids because number one rule in fighting, street fighting, is you don't want to go to the ground. But not
Oh, you froze.
for kids.
Oh, you froze.
Oh,
Sorry about that. You froze.
I'm sorry. I just dropped so much gold nuggets right there. Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Okay. You need to have a good base on the ground. So whether it's wrestling or jiu-jitsu, I would recommend. A lot of kids get into wrestling. My son's into jiu-jitsu. For those that don't know jiu-jitsu, it's for women. How do women get hurt? They get in the rape situation, right? So we call that the guard position. There's so many things that you can do to an attacker that will create space and then run, right? We don't teach, no martial arts teaches you with the goal of destroying your person, right? They want you to create enough space where you can run. So jiu-jitsu, wrestling, any kind of striking, which is like boxing or Krav Maga. Krav Maga kind of a good Krav Maga studio will roll them all in one. But if you had to go to one, you can go to jiu-jitsu and you can learn how your body moves. At a young age, we're still, kind of wild and we're, topsy-turvy. You get a good base with wrestling and jiu-jitsu. And then from there, you get all those muscles and the things that you need to step up to a level. And striking will then come into place, not just striking with your hands, but with your feet, excuse me, your knees, your elbows, your head. This whole thing is a weapon. And when it comes down to surviving in a fight, I'm using everything. There's no honor. I don't shake your hand and go, okay, no shots to the groin, no eye gouging. No. If I'm surviving, if I'm going out, if you're coming after me, you crossed a line that I've already made in the sand, and I'm going to rip your ears off. I'm going to bite you. I'm going to do some nasty things because the number one goal I have is to get home to my family every night. And so with kids, that sounded kind of brutal when I was talking about kids biting ears off and all this stuff. But wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and striking, boxing, and so those is what I would get you started in. But what I do for people as well is when you have these kind of questions, like where do I start? I had a guy in the most remote area I've ever seen. He said, hey, I have nowhere to train. I Googled some spots for him. I said, you could either do this or I'll give you options. So if you give me your area, I'll give you my information. You can click the link and reach out to me. I'll help you find a great studio because not every studio is the same. There are some that, might have things that you don't want to be involved in, like fighting and all that stuff. I'll research for you. Just tell me your goals of your child or yourself. Tell me your goals and what you want. I'll do the research for you and I'll help you out and give you some options of where you can go. But I do want everybody to get involved. I think at a very young age, kids need it. It only creates an upstanding, confident young person. So I highly recommend it. Yeah, and so just reach out to me because it's hard to, if little Johnny doesn't like this or little Johnny has some kind of disadvantage, we work with kids that, have bad arms. One doesn't extend further. So we work with them differently. So just reach out to me and I will definitely help you in any way I can.
All right, cool. Yeah, I think that the basics, striking positions and how to punch, super important because kids can, if they're not punching the right way, they can actually break their wrist or break their fingers. So teaching them how to punch, that was one of the first things that I did with my boys is teaching them how to not only put their hands up and defend their face, their head
Yeah.
area, but also how to strike and how to punch. Those are the most important things that I taught my boys at a very young age. I mean, we have a boxing bag in the garage that they can punch on with boxing gloves and all that stuff. We just had an incident last summer where we went with a little family get together up north, and they had some boxing gloves, and so we threw the kids out in the backyard. So my two boys, here they are, they're 23 and 20 at the time, but they're out there with the boxing gloves on and they're having fun. They're boxing each other, and they didn't do headshots because they had no headgear, but they were just boxing each other and having fun. My wife was a little freaked out about it, but I said they're fine. Let them have it.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of they had some fun in it. But teaching kids proper stance, proper technique, proper punching, and if you don't know those things, like Josh said, if you don't know those things, reach out to him. He can tell you some studios in the area that'll help you with that stuff. But super important to have your kids defend themselves because listen, at the end of the day, our kids are typically away from us 8 to 10 hours of the day. They're on their own, whether it's in school or sporting events, they're on their own. And you need to be able to be comfortable with the fact that they're on their own and they should be able to handle themselves in a situation if they need to. And that's really the point of this conversation is really teaching kids how to handle themselves in situations when they're not around us to
Yeah.
protect them. So Josh, thank you again for being on, brother. I really appreciate it. For my listeners that maybe want to get in contact with you, maybe pick up the book, all those kinds of things, best place for them to do that.
You can go to savagesyndicate.group.com. I'm just sprucing it up. It should be done this week, but there you can still reach out to me. You can have my email, which is joshbrisbane@savagesyndicate.group.com. I respond to everybody. You can hit me up on Facebook, social media, all that is just Josh Brisbane. It's my name, Brisbane. I respond to you because my number one goal is to inspire people to defend themselves. So if I just say what I say and then don't respond to anybody, then that's on me. So I'm definitely here for anybody who wants to reach out. I'll help you in any way I can. I will personally train you if you're in the area. But just do something because we are living in crazier times. They're only going to get crazier, and we need to be the protectors of our family, of ourselves and our family. So I appreciate you having me on. It was an honor, and I had a great time talking to you.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, I definitely get in contact with Josh if you guys are looking for something along the lines of helping your kids or helping you for that matter, whether it's husbands or wives, helping you guys defend your family, defend your kids, or having them learn how to defend themselves. Make sure you're looking at the things that Josh is doing and reach out to him because I know that he would love to help. And Josh, it's been an honor having you on, my friend. I'm glad that we've gotten a chance to connect virtually, and we've become good friends. And I'm looking forward to growing this friendship. You and I are so close as far as where we
Yeah.
live that you and I are going to have to get together one of these days and break some bread, man.
Let's do it. Let's do it for sure. I'd be an honor. I'd love it.
Awesome. Well, listen, guys, thank you again very much for joining me on another episode of Dad Up. Thank you again to my good friend Josh Brisbane for joining me. Make sure you guys are checking out the things that he's doing on social media. Go to his website, check out the book, pick it up, read it, let him know what your thoughts are on the book. And then, as always, make sure you guys are subscribed to my show if you're not yet, so you don't miss awesome guests every single week like Josh. Thank you guys very much for joining me again. And I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at daduppodcast. Until next time, everyone, dad up.